Well, thank you for having me here to your members and talking about business, because that's kind of what I'm passionate about. 38 years of experience with a corporation in various roles really gives me that knowledge base to really just be passionate about it. So Emily and I talked about what's good. So I gave her a list of about 50 or 60 things that we do. And so doing good while doing good business really made good sense for this group, because you like to do good for the community. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means and who we are as SCORE. SCORE, the way we try to serve the community is provide free mentoring and services. We've had a significant impact in 2021, starting 177 new businesses in 2021. And the pandemic only increased the number of people who wanted to start new businesses. They kind of like working at home and having that flexibility. And so they think, owning a new business, I can just stay at home. We try to dissuade them from that and say, there's a lot of work in owning your own business. So we try to bring a little bit of reality, and we do that all for free. We have about 70 mentors. Andrew is a subject matter expert for us and also a speaker for SCORE. So we do training throughout the city. We do it all remotely now, but we've done it in person as well. So I wanted to talk about, what's the problem here that we're trying to solve? And it's really, how do I do good while I'm doing business? Because we all have to make a living. And how do we support the community? What does that mean to us? And we really need to know what the difference is between profit, for-profit, and social enterprises. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because it's a new concept, newer, I should say. But it really, how do I impact business and community at the same time? So every business needs to understand their consumer. So I want to talk about the consumer today. The consumer today likes brands that serve a purpose as well. They will pay more if they think that your corporation is having a positive impact on the community. And a lot of people say a business is successful if they're having a positive impact on the community as well as just for profit. Deloitte did a study in 2019 to talk about what are the top issues that consumers identify with, because that's really what we're trying to do today. They want to know how they treat their own employees. That's really important. How they treat the environment. It's becoming more and more important to the millennials, right? They want to know that you're not negatively impacting, and are you positively impacting? And how do they support the community? So if you've read anything like the triple bottom line about the environment and measuring, corporations are now measuring themselves on their impact on the community. And so it's really important for us to understand how we do that. So I want to talk a little bit about a continuum. If you think of nonprofits all the way down at the bottom to and for-profit all the way up, and what are all the different kind of corporations in between? So we call this a continuum of good. Doesn't mean for-profit industry isn't good for the community, because guess what? It provides jobs and incomes, and those are all good, right? But there is a little bit of understanding. We have nonprofits. 1913 was when the first nonprofit was established, so it's been around quite a bit now. And it really runs under a board of directors, and so it has a whole nother platform of requirements that a for-profit organization doesn't necessarily have. When we talk to new business that wants to become a nonprofit, one of the first things we'll say is, do you really? Because if you're really passionate about it, you can get kicked off your own corporation because the board can say you're not doing a good enough job and you're out. So we really want people to understand 501c corporations are, an entity in themselves, right? And there are lots of rules and regulations, because guess what? They've been around since 1913. There are over 5,000 nonprofits in the city of Columbus. I looked because someone said Dublin, 350 in Dublin. Little Canal Winchester, where I live, 85. So it's just a huge number. There are over 10,000 in the state of Ohio. So it's a huge business, and we need to support it. And so SCORE does that. We've just started a series on running your nonprofit. So every month we're doing a whole nother series on that. So that's just an example of how we can support business, for-profit and non-for-profit, but also in between. Social enterprise. It's a business that has a non-negotiable, right? Something that isn't going to change. And I want you to think about the mission of our social enterprise is to employ the people who have been incarcerated and coming out. It doesn't matter whether they make money or not. They really want that mission statement to go forth. A benefit corporation actually now has a legal designation, and it hasn't had that all the time. And every state has a different legislation. Ohio has none, so it's even more nebulous here, right? It's a higher purpose, but it is definitely solely for profit. So they're looking at that bottom line, and that is their mantra. And a certified B corporation, this is something new, newer, and understanding measuring how they impact the environment, how they impact the social enterprise. So people are looking at them and getting certified so they can say, yes, I'm actually buying from a certified B corporation. It's a long assessment. It takes 1 to 3 years. You have to be in business 1 to 3 years. But that certification gives you validity to go to larger corporations who are trying to impact the environment and their communities in a positive way. So they want actually certified B corporations because they now know, well, someone else has deemed you appropriately a social enterprise. So, and then there's conscious capitalism. I would say a lot of corporations do this. They know that they are there for profit. A lot of them have a part of their corporation that is actually a foundation. I worked for Armstrong World Industries. They had Armstrong World Industries Foundation. It was supported by. So that's really conscious capitalism. I know that I'm in here to make money. I'm in here to make new products and get them installed and all that. But I know that I want to positively impact. So I'll do that, create that foundation. So I'll have an arm to it. A lot of our small businesses are doing this as well because they start making money and then they say, I really want to give back to the community. So that conscious capitalism is also, it's a win-win for the community. So there are a lot of, and I know that as we solicit funds from banks, because we're a nonprofit and we're soliciting funds, so that is conscious capitalism on the part of the banks, right? And we really want, we appreciate that, but they need to educate their clients on small businesses. We provide that. So that's kind of what conscious capitalism is. So this is a continuum, and I like to think about it that way because sometimes you don't quite fit into, a square peg doesn't fit into one of these round holes that I've created. So I gave some examples so that, because those ring true to me. That when I see an example, I can say, okay, I got it. Now, I knew the words before, now I get it. So as I said, nonprofits, there are over 7,000 in Franklin County. Social enterprises, Goodwill Enterprises is one that, hires people with handicaps, and that helps them. Roosevelt Coffee House, Hot Chicken Takeover, employs previously incarcerated people, and that is their mission statement. That's why they went into business. It wasn't to make money. It was to provide employment for people coming out of prison. So a benefit corporation, King Arthur Flour is a benefit corporation. Certified B corporation, Tom's. If you've ever seen any of their Tom's add their shoes, you buy one, they give one away. Bombas is another one where you buy a pair of socks, they give one away. So those are certified B corporations. They've spent a lot of time making sure that they're certified. And people can say, yep, when I buy from Tom's, I know it's a really good corporation. Patagonia is another one example of that. So, and people buy that brand because they know they're doing good for their community. Conscious capitalism, Panera. Panera does a good job of trying not to impact with food waste, and they also donate their food, excess food at the end of the day, to shelters, right? So there are a lot of good examples of corporations really trying to make sure, yes, we're a capitalist organization, but we really want to do good in the kind. Kind Bars does the same thing. So, and then for-profit. Okay, I didn't list because you could list those without me probably. So, but that's kind of the continuum of good. I love to talk about business models and what does that look like. There are lots of different types of business models that fit this whole social enterprise. So all the C Corp, S Corp, LLCs, those are all normal kind of business models that can work with this. We also have business models where we say, how do you do that? So sometimes when someone says, I want to be a social enterprise, we'll say, okay, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to make enough money to help others? So we talk about maybe a fee for service. You're charging a little more, but you might have scholarships, or you might have free funding for others. Tom's, like I mentioned, says buy one, they give one away. So that's another business model that we'll talk to about with our clients. What is it that's important to you, and how do we get that mission statement accomplished? So employing underserved, and then just profit sharing, right? Profit sharing with others can really be a helpful thing to the community if they say we're going to share our profits at the end. Paul Newman's salad dressings and marinara sauces, they say it right on the bottle. You know, we're going to share our profits with good causes. I think Subaru does the same thing. When you buy a car, you could potentially donate to the charity of your choice, right? So these are all ideas of social enterprises and for-profit businesses really trying to help make an impact positively on the community. I think. So they are making a difference in the local economy. There are over 100 social enterprises here in Columbus. I've named a few. They have over 2,300 jobs here. So that's a huge number of employment. They have about 73 million revenue generated, and 16 created 253 new jobs in the area. So they're really, really important to the Columbus community as well. And I get these kind of statistics, like where do I pull this out of the air? I'm pulling it with social ventures, and I want you to be aware that SCORE has a lot of partners. We call ourselves the Catalyst because we like to connect people. There are a lot of local resources here in the Columbus area that are really focused on social enterprises. Give Back Hack is one of those organizations. Sea Change actually is almost based in Ohio now because they just ran a seminar in Cleveland as well. So they will ask people to give pitches for their social enterprise solution. So name a problem in the social environment that you might need. Employing the incarcerated or whatever social issue you think you might have, feeding the poor. They do pitches, and then they will help them get started with seed funding at the end of the person who wins those. So Sea Change does a great job here in Columbus and now also in Cleveland. They do a lot of educational services as well that we will help support. So they might call me up and say, hey, can you do one on profit and loss statements? So we try to do a lot of community engagement with other resources for small businesses and social enterprises. So ECDI is another one of our partners. They are the largest microlender for the SBA in the nation now, here in Columbus, which is amazing that we have that kind of power here. So they do a lot with helping small businesses, get started. They also are doing a nonprofit wing to them at this point, and also social enterprises. So this whole idea of nonprofit and for-profit, and now there's this sea of stuff in between that we're trying to really, think about how to best advise them. Because guess what? Their key performance indicators are going to be a little different than a for-profit. And what does that look like? And how do we, make sure that we're giving them the best advice? So, obviously, I put SCORE down at the bottom. So, I have to do that little plug for my organization. So, those are the local resources, and that's really the end of my speech. So, I'm here to really talk, answer questions about that whole continuum and what that looks like. Or any questions you might have about SCORE? Yes.
Well, I haven't been a member of this club as long as many others have, by far. But this particular Rotary Club has actually started a number of nonprofit ventures over the years. And it's amazing to me what a wonderful club this is for that reason. And the Homeless Families Foundation and other nonprofits have been started, and then Big Rotary has started nonprofits as well. So we have a experience in that, and we really appreciate. I just really appreciated your laying out the various business types, because I'm a lawyer and I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's new. I mean, relatively, this whole social enterprise, if you think about all those brands that came up with it, the Bombas and the Hot Chicken, they're all relatively new. So it's a new idea. Yeah. Yes.
How many businesses are you serving right now, and what's the typical length of time that you work with businesses?
We like to say we work for the life of the business. So we have some clients that advisors have been dealing with for decades, truly. I would say the typical is probably 5 to 7 sessions, because usually they're at a problem, right? They're at a juncture in a road and they just need help. They may need help creating a business plan. They may need help working on an employee issue. So we'll pull in or sales issues. So we'll pull in those what we call subject matter experts to try to advise them, to get them over the hump. So I would say 5 to 7. We like to make at least 3, because we find in our data that if you have over 3 sessions, you're much more successful. You're much more likely to be successful. So we have, you asked how many clients. In my client database right now, we have over 1,700 active clients. We have about 70 people in our chapter, so we're spread thin. So, but we like to advise people. So, yes.
Do you know if any of these organizations you referred to, do any of them target the Columbus City Schools as a receiver of their support?
I don't know of any of those particular organizations. I would say the organizations that I listed actually support the social enterprise organization that might do that. So they would be one step removed. So they would be, the organizations I listed are the ones who are going to say, how do you know your donations are enough to support your mission statement? They're going to be looking at you from the business perspective, not at your mission statement perspective and whether you're serving that part of the community. Did that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What is the criteria for the client businesses you take on?
We have no criteria. Nope. If you want a volunteer, if you want to, there's no, you could just have a glimmer of an idea. I've worked with clients who are like, I have an idea for a toy. And I was like, great. And where are we going to go from here? And what does that mean? And what do you foresee? And so we start from that. But we've also, been with businesses that have, been in existence for decades. I had one gentleman call me up in the morning. He goes, I have to fire somebody. I've never had to do this. I only have 5 employees. How do I do it? So we just kind of, let me get an HR person online, and we just kind of walk through it. So there's no criteria, because we're here to serve. So. I will say this, usually, it used to be, 2 years ago, we did not necessarily service nonprofits because we didn't have the expertise in-house. Now we have about 3 volunteers that are really expert in the nonprofit methodologies, and so now we're servicing that as well. Yes.
So
How specifically did your experiences from Armstrong, how have those benefited you in your current role?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I was in a major corporation and now I'm helping small businesses, right? But guess what? A profit and loss statement and a balance sheet don't change whether you're big or little. So that certainly transferred. How to manage people doesn't change between big and little corporations, so that helps significantly. I've managed over 100 people in a call center, so those kind of experiences on how to deal with people help. I would say being the catalyst at my business where I was, connecting all the different departments, that's what we do here at SCORE. You need lending, here are the 12 lenders we know of. You need a lawyer, you need an accountant. These are things you need to consider. So I think project management skills transfer incredibly. You know, okay, let's take this down to, you know, I hate to say 12-step process, but you know, we have a 7-step process that kind of takes you thinking through your business, right?
I'm interested that you have a process you use. Could you describe the process?
Yes, we have several processes that we take our mentors through. Our mentors have to go through a process called SLATE, so suspend judgment, listen, analyze, I'm going to forget the other, test what your theories are, you know, and then evaluate where you are and where you need to go next. So that's what we try to teach our mentors, really try to understand where you are. And listen, that's really hard for a lot of us, like me. So that's the process we take our mentors through. Our businesses, we have 7 steps where we talk about what is a business and what kind of business do you want. So we talk about all the different types, LLC, S-Corp, those types of things. We might bring in a lawyer just to help advise them about pros and cons to each. We talk about marketing. And marketing today is a little different than it was, so now we break it out between digital and traditional. And understanding your community, doing a little bit of market analysis, we'll talk a little bit about that, and using your library here. The libraries are amazing for business. They actually have a business consultant at the Metro Library down here at Grant, who, if you go in with a library card, she's going to help you figure out who your competitors are. How great is that? I couldn't pay for that at Armstrong. I paid millions. So the fact that there's someone here in the city to help do that for small businesses is great. We talk about profit and loss statements and balance sheets, what capital is required, and what type of lending do you need. So we have those steps that we walk through to try to make sure that nobody's going to, fall into a crevice, because that's what happens with small businesses, right? They go along fine, and then all of a sudden something really bad happens, or something that they didn't impact, like the pandemic, and how do you pivot? So we did a lot of pivotal conversations during the pandemic. Yes, you were brick and mortar, front, Main Street store. You better get online because nobody's walking down Main Street in 2020, right? So we had those kind of conversations. Then we had conversations of how do you reopen. So I would say we have the 7 steps that we take you through in the beginning, but we're there for whatever you're dealing with. Yes, sir.
Do businesses join SCORE like they would join their business bureau or chamber?
No, they don't. No, SCORE is all individuals, but we will go out to chambers. Like I've worked with the Pickering Tin Chamber, and I've worked with the Dublin Chamber. We work with the DEC, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, trying to get in and tell them, hey, here's a resource, and we can provide classes for you. So then they ask the cost, and I say for free. Andrew.
Columbus Rotary, Leslie, has a complex network in the state and in the country and internationally. Talk a little bit about SCORE's complex network that supports it and how the Columbus group is doing.
Oh, thanks. So we're about 70, as I said, here in Columbus, and we are supported by a national organization. There are about 10,000 volunteers. So if somebody calls me up and says, I want to do voiceovers, I say, well, I have no experience in that. I'll go out to my national network and say, does anybody have experience in voiceovers? I just did a seminar on trucking. I was in charge of customer service, so I knew I used trucks, but I didn't know enough to help advise a business on trucking. So I went to my national network, I got on the phone, we got some really good collaboration for a client, so that they could think of things that I could not think of. So we use that network when we don't have the expertise. And nationally, which is really nice, they create a CRM system or a customer relation management system for us, so I can keep track of the clients and how many times we've talked to them, and automatic evaluations. So think of corporation as sorting helping us do the infrastructure for our organization. They actually petition Congress for money for SCORE. We are supported by Congress every year through the SBA. So I work with the SBA, the SBDC. So I'm pretty complicated in who I can, who are my friends, and they are also working with large corporations to provide national training. So we'll do profit and loss training over and over and over again in every chapter, but they're going with deluxe printing and creating an online seminar. So we've got a lot of support from corporate to do the routine training. So that helps. Thank you for that.
Experts who have experience, you're going to get the same ideas that have worked. How do you promote true originality?
Yes, that's a really good one. True originality, I would say e-marketing is one of those areas where, wow, a lot of the people who, like myself, we had it at the tail end of my career, right? Not at the beginning. But we employ others to do that type of work. Rev Local, not Rev One, but Rev Local is a marketing firm, and they'll come in and do the presentation for us. So we will go out and say, we're not the experts because things are changing, so that we'll get others to come in. So that's how we stay fresh. And I will say that our national organization keeps us pretty fresh too, because and even our volunteers, they're not all retired. So they're all in the working force, working and trying to, stay on top of the newest trends. So we're all perpetual learners, so we try to stay on top of the newest and latest. So, because even financing is changing significantly. We worked with IFF, which is a Chicago-based firm. They just invested in the Ronald McDonald House here in Columbus. And the way they do it is they help nonprofits own their real estate, lease out their real estate, and therefore have a revenue stream so they don't have to do so much fundraising. It's a great model, new and novel. So we're trying to always stay on top.